Jennifer, thank you for bringing us this story tonight.
Yeah, it's today Joe Biden signed an executive order lifting the transgender military ban. So I think you have a clip related to this.
Yeah, we can go ahead and make that happen.
Good evening, and it's great to have you with us here on a Wednesday night. And we begin with President Trump's sudden and sweeping ban, using Twitter to reveal it. Tweeting he will ban transgender people from serving in the military in any capacity. It came on a day when the defense secretary is on vacation, and the Pentagon saying essentially, if you have questions, ask the White House. The unexpected move brought immediate outrage, especially after promises made by then candidate Donald Trump. ABC's chief White House correspondent Jonathan Karl leading us off.
As a candidate, Donald Trump promised to protect gay, lesbian, and transgender rights. The first nominee ever to make such a promise at a Republican convention.
As your president, I will do everything in my power to protect our LGBTQ citizens.
Thank you so much for joining me, Captain. You are coming up on your 12th year anniversary in the military. You served a tour of duty in Afghanistan. You are returning home yesterday, and you see these tweets from the president. What did you think?
I didn't know what to think. I stepped off the plane and turned my phone on, and I was getting bombarded from friends and family, and a lot of people just asking, what's going on? What does this mean? How does this affect you? And I think the first thing that I thought was, what is going on? I was confused myself, and then that kind of turned into being angry, frustrated, and scared.
It's a blow to more than 2,000 transgender military personnel, like Lieutenant Colonel Bree Fram, an Air Force rocket scientist who came out when President Obama dropped the ban on transgender service, a ban the Supreme Court today allowed President Trump to bring back.
It's a really difficult message to face when you've been singled out as someone who's not wanted for something that has nothing to do with your ability to serve this country.
And we've also learned from sources that the president today will be signing an executive order lifting the Pentagon's ban on transgender people serving in the military. That controversial policy that President Trump put in place a few years ago. Biden has long supported reversing this, and we've learned that the new defense secretary, Lloyd Austin, who of course also supports this, will be on hand for the signing, George.
This is reinstating a position that previous commanders and as well as the secretaries have supported. And what I'm doing is enabling all qualified Americans to serve their country in uniform and essentially restoring the situation that existed before with transgender personnel, if qualified in every other way, can serve our government in the United States military.
Quite the journey for the transgender community.
Well, absolutely. And 3 years ago, Donald Trump announced this ban via Twitter, and the Pentagon was like, well, we're not going to answer questions. You have to defer to the administration. But, it's the same. During his campaign, he was like, oh, I'm going to protect what he called the LGBTQ community from the violence that's been inflicted on them by the Democrats. But then he went and inflicted that same violence through a tweet with no regard. So that's particularly interesting. So this is a big moment for the transgender community. This ban was upheld and allowed to take an effect by SCOTUS, the Supreme Court of the United States. And so I think this is a really kind of a good moment to be celebrated in that context.
It is. My view, and I come from a military family background. I failed my flight physical at MEPS, and that was the end of my flight career because they found an eye condition that I didn't know that I had at the time. And that was that. My sister was a pilot. My father was in the Army. I have two uncle in the Army, uncle in the Air Force. I can go on and on. Brother, Marine Corps. My view has always been if you can pass the physical and mental requirements, then what else matters? You can do the job, then what else matters?
Yeah, I know. The rigidity of gender construction within our society is absolutely insane, and gender norms for that matter. And these are historic and have carried through. And it's still, people talk about, yeah, we've come a long way. There's, been rights acquired and people have fought for these rights, but there's still very much discrimination that runs through systemically and impacts so many people. So I think this is a really positive thing at the moment, and something that should be celebrated.
And I agree. And I have a number of transgender people in my circle. They're all just absolutely wonderful people, and they're just people.
Cool. Yeah, absolutely.
I don't get it. I mean, I get it. I don't get it. And I certainly will not stand up here and pretend that I understand their struggle, because I'll never understand their struggle.
Yeah.
And if, and Jennifer, if you look in the BIPOC community, if you're transgender and BIPOC, if you look at things like life expectancy and number of violence incidents against it, it's absolutely terrifying.
No, absolutely. And I think this is why it's so important now that we normalize things like asking people for their pronouns, just basic things. And so we can, better, not better understand, but be, more accepting of the ways in which people are living their lives and the struggles that they're going through, and doing something as simple as going, hey, how would you like to be referred to, rather than assuming somebody is, one particular gender or another. I think it's just something small people can do to really kind of help.
And if somebody is serving, and the other thing was, when this ban went down in 2017, when the previous administration lifted the ban, essentially, right, we had this don't ask, don't tell, and then that kind of evaporated, and then it was like people that were transgender came out. So when the ban came down, people that had served with honor and distinction, including people in combat, were all of a sudden, facing being shown the door and having their military career ruined.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I can, I'm like you, I can't imagine what that must have been like. But to have your entire life basically, near destroyed through a tweet, is just absolutely astounding to me. And then, to have him claim in these rallies that he's going to protect this community from violence and perpetrate it anyways, just, I think, shows the character or lack thereof that he possesses.
And if you're, I'm going to hit the Chud button. If you're a Chud,
cannibalistic humanoid underground dwellers,
and you're upset about us talking about this, remember, Donald Trump promised he would not do this at the Republican National Convention. It's not some deep fake. It's not CNN. It's not the liberal press. He stood up on the stage in 2016 in front of the entire Republican Party, getting the nomination for president, saying, I'm going to protect this community.
Yeah. Yeah. He said it on more than one occasion at rallies. So this was not something that was a one-off that he said this one particular moment. He said this repeatedly throughout his campaign.
Yes, exactly. And the last thing I'll say about, military distinction, if you're somebody who is not like Tom Cotton, who goes, hey, I was an Army Ranger, and then like people in the Rangers go like, dude, you're never an Army Ranger. It's like, ick.
That story. Oh, okay.
It's just ick. Little pause for the cause again, Jennifer. And again, if you haven't done it in a while, please spam those hearts. If you're watching on Facebook, Twitter, or Periscope, you can go ahead and spam those hearts. Let the mods and admins know that you really appreciate the work that they're doing. Also, let Nikki know that you appreciate all those questions that she's answering. We've been seeing that go by in the chat. There's a great conversation that's going on the side over there. If you're watching us on Twitch or YouTube, I can't spam hearts. That's okay. You could just put a big row of hearts, or say love you mods, or love you show people, or whatever else you want to do. And with that, Jennifer, I'm just going to do a quick thank you again to our patrons. And I know I have to update this graphic, patrons. I know. It's a little crazy today. It was on the list, that ended on the cutting room floor. And then we'll go into our second to last story.